I wrote down the self-intimacy part because I thought that was really interesting. And I want to read a little paragraph maybe from your book if I can, because I think that this is a great, I don't know, pathway to more conversation. So you say under the title Dismantle to Discover, if we want to thrive within our relationship with ourself and create a place of inner sanctuary, we must dismantle and disarm everything within our programming that prevents us from coming into a sure sense of self. I love that. I love this idea of dismantling to discover. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we all have these ideas, I think, that we pick up in our lives and they stick with us. They stick to our
Mhm.
bones and they become like our little, our stuffy and we hold them close. And it's really, really, really important for us to really dissect that. Why is it that I feel that this person is going to make me whole? Why do I feel this job it adds to my value? Why is it that I feel that um, my children are a, what's the word I want to look for? Are a substitute for joy.
Mm.
Why is it that I feel that? And, it's hard. It's easier said than done because no one wants to know the answer because the answer
Mhm.
sometimes doesn't feel good. But what I've discovered is the more we dig and we dig and we dig, then we find out things and we discover things. And then we get the chance to like pull it apart and tear down the things that doesn't serve us. That doesn't align with what I really believe
Mm.
anymore, um, and how I feel about myself anymore. And so dismantle to discover, keep digging till you hit bedrock. And it's easier said than done.
Mm.
What I'm curious to ask about is how you've navigated that in the context of being in a relationship with another person. Because what I find comes up so frequently, especially for women, especially around women in their early 40s, is we go through this period of all of a sudden exactly what you're speaking to, which is like, I've had a very clear idea of like who I should be to be a good wife, woman,
Mhm.
parent, whatever. And all of a sudden, I really don't know if that's my truth or if that's the truth I was fed. And I find that it can feel really difficult to stay in the container of this relationship a lot of times and do that deep excavation that you're talking about. So, will you say a little bit more about like how you navigated doing that inside of a relationship?
Ooh, I mean, it was a lot of talking.
Mm.
And I mean, I was kind of lucky-ish, kind of, sort of, where we were both discovering at the same
Mm.
time. My husband at that time was doing some major, major work on himself.
Mhm.
And I also was doing some major, major work. So we were kind of lucky, I guess, in the sense of we were both open to how different we are now.
Mhm.
I mean, we met when we were 18 years old,
Gosh.
18 and 19. And I mean, I have a kid that's going to be 18 next year.
Mm.
So, I mean, you can tell I have not been 18 in a very long time. um, and, to this idea that no one is going to change
Mm.
or shift or be a completely different person than the person you met is absolutely not true. It's
Mm.
it's 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 egregious. Like it's not realistic. And thank heavens we're not. I would not want to be 18-year-old Brandi. That would be I'm sorry to anyone who knew me when I was 18. Um so, it was a lot of communication, a lot of talking, um, a lot of bravery and
Mm.
Mm.
transparency. I think that's a big thing that comes up with a lot of relationships is this fear of rejection and this fear that if I say who I am now,
Mhm.
what I am now, where I am now, then this person won't love me. And again, it
Mhm.
goes back to that relationship with self. How much do you love you? You know, how
Yes.
much do you want to be the person that you're supposed to be? And then everyone else, again, icing.
Mhm.
So I think we were lucky in the sense of we were both in a space where we were changing and shifting and much needed for
Mm.
sure.
Yeah, it's like the
Mhm.
idea of it's so important that both people approach the relationship with curiosity, approach themselves with curiosity. I was just having this conversation with a client before we got on, and I was just saying to her, I'm like, I hate to be this blunt, but if this partner of yours is not willing in any way to be introspective, is not willing in any way to own what's theirs or to dig into like why they show up this way, right? I mean, I basically said, there's not like this can't go anywhere.
There's
I
no
mean, you'll hit a
there's no
stalemate.
hope.
Yeah, there's no hope for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I mean,
and I
it's
mean, don't you
not
say
the
the same
hope.
thing for friends, right? Like it's not just romantic partners. I mean, I think that just in general, like if you're somebody who's like, I'm on this path of growth, if there's somebody in your
Mhm.
life who's like, yeah, no, I'm not interested in looking inward, then there's only so far you can go.
Yeah, there's only so far and there's only so much you can do. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the thing. It's their work to do, you
Mm.
know. And I talk about that a lot in the book, you know. Our Like I said, we were married really young. So you imagine you have two people whose frontal cortex isn't fully developed. And yet we're getting into contract with each other and marrying
Mm.
each other. And we have a child,
Mm-hmm.
frontal cortex still not developed yet. And you know, we're dealing with that. We're dealing with our trauma that we haven't even deemed as trauma yet. We haven't even looked at it as trauma. And then, you know, that brings up so many issues. It brings up infidelity. It brings up all these things that, you know, I call it two children in
Mm.
adult bodies,
Mm-hmm.
just just like figuring
Yeah.
it out. And it took a lot of work. It took him doing his work, me doing my work. And yeah, like you have to have both people who are wanting to figure themselves out. And that's the other thing too, is not even figuring out the partnership or the relationship or the friendship, but themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Like,
right.
why is it that I dot dot dot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so important because you hear people talk a lot about like it's not true that you have to love yourself before you can love someone else. And while I think that's fair, also I think what you're saying is really true because what I see so often is in order to maintain attachments, a lot
Mhm.
of people have relationships where there's a whole lot of things we could never talk about because I
Mm-hmm.
need to
Yeah.
not say that because you could leave me and you might not love me.
Yes.
And so that's not actually intimacy. That is like
Yeah.
two people doing life around each other, but we're
They're
not
around.
actually like
Mm-hmm.
safe here with you because I
They're in
know
the
there's a whole lot of
vicinity of
things
each
I can't
other.
say.
Yes.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
it's true. It's
but it's
true.
brave work. You're absolutely right. Like, and both people, however many people, if it's friendships, like have to be committed to like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm going to say this, but I'm going to stay with myself
Yes,
regardless of the outcome. And that takes a lot of like, that's the self love piece
it
to
Mm-hmm.
me.
is. It is. It's a lot of self-love. And I mean, this is something that we talk to our kids about even, you know, we have a teenager who is navigating friendships and
Mm.
you know, we were literally having this conversation last night with him because he was so afraid of his friend who like, you know, they were having like a little like butting of heads and you know, we were explaining to him, say what you feel.
Mm.
You know, he was like, but what if he thinks I don't want to be his friend anymore? And I was like, you can't control that. If you
Mm-hmm.
didn't say that, say your truth, say what you're feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was this fear of like, but what if I'm like, you can't control that. You
Mm-mm.
know, it's hard, but it's
Mm.
so worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so worth it.
Well, and I think we're also
Mhm.
doing the work of, it's like, how do I say this? It's like our biology has not evolved at the rate at which I feel like our consciousness has evolved, right? Or even like our technology,
Yeah.
for example. And so a lot
Yeah.
of these conversations that we are all having, your biology is going against it. Like there's this idea of like,
Yeah.
I need to belong. I need to belong. Like I can't be ostracized from the group, right? I mean, this goes back to you would
Yes.
literally die if you weren't in tribe and in community. Right. And so
Right.
sometimes I feel like that, and this is what I talk to with clients all the time, where I say, doing the uncomfortable thing. And I always say, that's so uncomfortable, it makes you feel like you're going to die. And I'm not
Yes.
exaggerating when I say that. There's a reason why you're so uncomfortable. You feel like you're going to die, because it's wiring, right? And it's like, we're
Yeah.
trying to live at this different level of consciousness, because that's where we're moving. And that's what our growth and our evolution as a being, or a species, is calling us towards. But don't, like, anybody who's listening, don't think that it's not without real struggle,
Absolutely.
you know?
Oh yeah, the struggle is real.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
real. It's real.
Yeah, but I love the term self-intimacy, and I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna quote
Use
you
it.
on that and refer back to it, because I think that is the thing that I don't
Mm.
know, the healing modalities haven't talked about enough from my perspective. It's
Mm-hmm.
so like, get into the space of co-regulation. You need to like be, and all of those things are true. And if we do not accumulate the tools to self-regulate and stay with myself and understand the waves of
Mhm.
emotions that come up,
Mhm.
then I will always be dependent on that other person to do those things for me. And I will not believe that I'm capable of it. And then,
That
when we're
part.
trying to attach, we will control. That's just what we do.
That part. And it's like, and what happens then?
Mm,
Because that's the other part of it. Life's and human.
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, so
Humans
what
gonna human.
happens? They
Mm-hmm.
they stay humaning. It's
I
like,
love it.
what happens? Like, what happens when that child goes off to college?
Mm,
What happens when that partner who you love makes a mistake, or
mhm.
actually doesn't say it the way he should have said it, or she
Mm.
should have said it? They didn't say it the way you wanted them to say it. What
Yep.
happens? What happens when the friend disappoints you? Then what?